Hey everybody, this is the video for chapters 8 and 9. So once you've finished listening to me on the video, please go ahead and take the quiz for chapters 8 and 9, which is already posted on Canvas. So without further ado, here we go. So let's talk about chapter 8. So in chapter 8, we're kind of dealing with the aftermath of the death of Myrtle. Okay, so if you remember back in chapter 7, after where Myrtle is killed, things are kind of dying down. So the parties have ended at Gatsby's. His house has started going to disrepair, which it's really indicative of Gatsby's dream. So his dream was thriving. However, it failed when Daisy would not run off with him. So he no longer needs to lure Daisy, and he's really forgotten about by other people because he doesn't have parties anymore. In all, really what is shown is that Gatsby's too fragile for the world around him. He pursued Daisy not because he loved her, but because she bruised his ego. So he had kind of a thrill of the chase going on. So he wanted to find her and be with her, and he wants to try and do that again. However, that fails. And so he needs to prove to himself, or he wanted to prove to himself that he could get anything if he worked for it. Didn't really work that way. So, all in all, things really didn't work out for him in terms of that dream. And so Nick lets his opinion of Gatsby be known to Gatsby. So even though he's a criminal, Gatsby's a better person than the others in the novel. So Nick tells him, everybody else is a rotten crowd. You're worth the whole damn bunch of them put together. So Nick has a high opinion of Gatsby, but this might just be lip service toward him. We'll talk about that in chapter 9. So let's discuss Myrtle and George. So Myrtle, who always wanted to be famous, is now only famous in death. George, her husband, is obviously distraught at her death, and he's a man of zero faith. But through his conversations throughout the investigation, he starts to see that the divine is looking down on everyone, and the eyes of T.J. Eckelberg in the advertisement are brought to everyone's attention once again. So he then assumes, George, that Gatsby is Myrtle's lover, wrong, and that he is also the man responsible for her death, correct. And so this, we can see, foreshadows something not very good that's going to happen. So Tom, in the midst of all this, throughout the investigation, is seen in the auto shop, and he identifies the dog collar that he had bought for Myrtle and for the dog that he bought for her. And he begins to break down and cry. So does that show that he really did care for Myrtle? Possibly. All right. But it also shows that, he's not a very good person because he's mourning the loss of the person he was cheating with. Okay. So after the accident in chapter 7, hang on, let's go back. Hang on. Okay. So at the end of the summer is winding down in West Egg. And so Gatsby decides to take a dip in the pool for the first time all summer right before he drains the pool. So throughout that little scene there, he's waiting for a call from Daisy that's never going to come. So even in the end of the summer, his dream is gone. He's still waiting for her. In his last moments, Gatsby is full of resignation and disappointment. So what does this show us? It shows us the futility of his dream. The futility of his dream. It's not going to happen. So he's still waiting for her. She's not coming. She's not going to be there. So the beautiful and peaceful, so his dream, is now ugly. So let's think about this. The parties that he held at his house, those were great. They were over the top, awesome. Now look at his house. Disrepair, pool being drained. It's a mess. Okay? His dream, beautiful, of being with Daisy, now gone, ugly, grotesque, never going to happen. And so just as is the case with his dream, so he dies. So his death is ugly and grotesque. He's murdered, okay, in his own pool. So in all of this, it's a mixture of the beautiful with the ugly. And so his death is the same way. And so he sees now the world for what it is in his death. So it's savage and artificial. It's savage and artificial. So, like I said, his last moment is symbolic of this, is a brutal ending amidst a beautiful backdrop. Let's go to chapter 9. So, with Gatsby's funeral, not many people there. Okay, so Nick is there, and Gatsby's dad is there. We'll get to him. And Owl Eyes is there. So nobody else comes to that came to Gatsby's parties is at the funeral because they don't care. So they were only at his parties for the status. So Klipspringer, who was the piano player, says, "Oh, I got to go to a picnic. I can't go there. Hey, Nick, mail me my shoes." Wolfsheim responds to Nick's phone call with a letter, and he will not be there. Tom and Daisy skip town. They're gone. So just as in life and death, Gatsby is an element of gossip with no real true friend. So Nick is really Gatsby's only true friend, kind of. But really, he could be better slated as the only person who attempts to get to know or understand Gatsby. So Mr. Gatz is Gatsby's father. And so his father, Henry, shows up at the house after finding out about the death of his son in the newspaper. He's restless and uncomfortable in his surroundings because he's a simple man. This is not something he's used to. So his grief is mixed with awe and pride. So he thinks highly of his son, but he doesn't really know how his son came to be who he was. And so he's oblivious to the fact that his son is really kind of a criminal. And so Henry, in all of this, through his pride, shows Nick a copy of Gatsby's meticulous schedule. So this shows, again, that it shows us that Gatsby was really into his own self-improvement, being a better person. Now, Nick doesn't understand this, so he thinks he's got it all figured out about Gatsby. He doesn't. Now, so let's talk about this kind of for the last time in terms of Nick's relationship with Gatsby. So you can really look at this in a couple of ways. Was Nick a legitimate friend to him? Is he a reliable character? Is he a good guy? All right. So Wolfsheim, I told you, sent a letter. He stated that Nick has made a wealthy gentleman out of Gatsby. I don't know how. He just has, according to Wolfsheim. So is there an element of bad to Nick as well? So Nick really, in my opinion, and in some others' opinion too, is really a fair weather friend. He's not sincere. So he was at first attracted to Gatsby's wealth and status. Not, is he a good guy? Does he have a good personality? What does he do? Maybe I should get to know him. No, he only goes off of what he sees. Throughout the book as well, he is also judging Gatsby's every move. He's trying to get subtle digs at him with everything that he does. So Gatsby's death then forces Nick to be forgiving. So he can't take those shots at him like he did before because he's now dead. Wolfsheim suggests that Nick's attitude and sympathy toward Gatsby were too late for him to do any good. So he says, hey, man, at the end of this, there's really nothing you could have done about it. Those are just the calming words of a gangster. You can't trust Wolfsheim, and he's just trying to sympathize with Nick. Now, let's talk about the ending. So at the end of the book, there is a significant quote, all right? So the significant quote at the end of the book states this. So Gatsby, and this is from Nick, Gatsby believed in the green light. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow will run faster, and one fine morning, so we beat on. Boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. So what does this mean? So Nick, in the end, returns to the theme of looking to the past for dreams of one's future. So he's focusing on the struggle of humans to achieve their goals by both transcending and recreating the past. What does this mean? So think about this for us, okay? If we set a goal It's really easy for us to say, well, the past doesn't affect me. My past doesn't affect me. I have no regrets. Okay. You hear that all the time. Well, I don't have any regrets. Well, sure you do. Okay. So you can say, people can say that, but they can't always avoid their past. Oh, I don't live in the past. That's another thing you hear a lot. Okay, maybe, but your past is still part of who you are. And so that also applies to the book. So Nick, in the end, is talking about the dreams of human beings. So he's focusing on our struggle of achieving those things. So by bringing in this boat image, he's saying that we can't move beyond our past. So the current of life keeps drawing us backward and forward toward our green light. All right. So what is the green light for Gatsby? His destiny. What's the green light for us? Our destiny. So how do we get to that? Well, it's all about our experiences in what we do. All right. So there are things, let's just, keep it simple. There are things that I would want to accomplish. There's things that might be holding me back from that. There's things that will draw me toward that. Now, does my past play a role in achieving those things on down the road? In my opinion, yeah. Okay. So the same thing goes for all of us, that our past has some role to play. It has some role in who we are and shaping who we are. And same thing goes for Gatsby. He can't escape who he was. Nick can't escape who he was. Daisy can't either. And so they keep going on toward their destiny, but moving back and forth because things hold them back. And sometimes they don't reach it, like Gatsby. Okay. So that is the end of the book. There is a quiz that is posted over chapters 8 and 9. Please get that completed in due time. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks. Have a great weekend.